Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. Last week you just had me, but this week I have Tane back again. We missed you last week, Tane. What have you been putting into your basket of knowledge since we last spoke?
Yeah, I think something, and this probably reflects missing that last podcast, is just, I guess, being a bit more vulnerable just around, I guess, I've been quite burnt out in the last month. I think coming into this new role, like it's all been very exciting. And, obviously I've shared that excitement on a previous podcast, but I think now that I've had like the last weekend to, I guess, take a step back, I've actually realized that I've been saying yes to quite a lot of things. And, it's that old cliche around, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. But I think, I just said yes to so many things. And at the time, you can do it. And at the time, you feel motivated or excited and passionate to, I guess, do those kinds of things. But yeah, taking a step back and realizing like every weekend I was either going away for my own rugby league or coaching or whatever it might have been. I had a weekend where I was helping with the Southland boys and then a weekend away coaching up in Oamaru. So just a lot of movement that I think is happening at the moment and just a lot of moving parts with that. And yeah, if I reflect on my last month, that I actually haven't taken the time to, I guess, focus on myself and give myself time a day, because I'll get home from training and then I'll do a little bit of work, or in the morning I'll do a little bit of work, emails, etc. And so I guess really just trying to put some of that stuff into perspective in terms of burnouts and what it is we actually do to stop ourselves from getting burnt out. Because, like the result was I pretty much spent the weekend doing nothing. But it shouldn't get to that point. And so how do you, figure out burnout before it gets to that point where you are just burnt out?
Yeah, don't say yes to everything. Just don't say yes to everything. Yeah, and I guess our guests today will talk about that as well, maybe as they navigate their journey. Beautiful. And I guess my biggest learning over the last week or so is that, and I think I've spoken about this before. It's change. Change is part of life, and as I reflect on some big changes that are happening in my life at the moment, it's quite scary as it's coming through, but also it's quite awesome to embrace the journey there. Change is part of life, and some change you can control, some change you can't control, but it is part of life, and I'm just trying to navigate that in my head and my physical space as well. So watch the space over the next few months as that unfolds. Change, and burnout. What a great way to introduce our next guest. For our regular listeners, you know that Tana and myself seek to scour the country and the world to find people that we think were amazing to jump on the podcast. We think everyone's amazing. And for those of you that are listening for the first time, welcome to our podcast. We appreciate you. And I think we're in for a treat today because I am so privileged and so honored to invite our guest on. I've been following their work through the different social media channels, but also through some other people that we had on the podcast, Arti and Nate and other people that have been really vocal in the space here. And just through them, I've realized there's some really awesome young people out there. And this is one young, awesome person that I think is really beautiful in what they're trying to do with what they bring into the world. So it's a really privilege and a real honor to welcome Elisa to our podcast. Welcome to Baskets of Knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited for this opportunity to share more about what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, beautiful. Elisa, for people who know nothing about you, you're just a blank slate, you're just a random person. How would you say, and who would you say you are to them at this point in time?
Yeah, so kia ora, I'm Elisa. I'm 17 years old from Wellington. So I'm at my last year at Wellington Girls College. And I feel like people would say that I'm quite ambitious, quite out there. And that's kind of reflected in what I've been trying to do for the past few years. I've kind of dabbled with sports at quite a high level. And then now my latest thing is business. And so I'm kind of going through the journey of being a teenager, navigating the world of commercializing a business in the sustainability space. So a lot of new stuff, but lots of cool learnings.
That is a great summary of who you are at this point in time, and we'll get into each of those phases there. So, Elisa, business, right? Let's go straight into it. One of the cool things that you're passionate about right now is your lovely product called EnviroPods. Let's talk about that. Where did that idea come from? Actually, no. Let's go back a little bit. Why would you even get into this whole business thing? You're enjoying life, enjoying school. What is the spark to get you into the whole entrepreneurial world?
Yeah, so definitely, if I think 2, 3 years back, I would have never pictured myself going into the entrepreneurial space. But if I think about it, I actually did kind of start developing some like entrepreneurial skills. So I started selling succulents when I was about 12 years old at my local fair, fundraising for some gymnastics competitions. And then did that for 2 years, learned all about, the variable cost per plant, trying to get all the things sorted and then selling them, marketing them. And then I moved on to selling native plants, which was a pretty big project, which involved me building my own greenhouse with my dad over COVID lockdown, which was a really good way to keep us entertained. Um, and then after selling about 700 native plants, I found myself with hundreds of plastic pots everywhere. I talked to some nurseries. Turns out that it's not just hundreds, but tens of millions of plastic pots that we use every year in Aotearoa. And a lot of them go to waste and in the landfill after just a single use. So I started thinking about how can we stop all this plastic going to the landfill and what's an alternative, which is when my business Enivo Pots came in.
Crazy. How awesome. So are plants just a part of your life? Have plants always been something that you
Well,
enjoy,
not
or is it just, hey, you were bored, let's make some money, some succulents, everyone loves some succulents, let's sow it.
yeah, plants, not necessarily my thing. The way that I got into succulents was probably seeing online how easily you can propagate succulents. And around my neighborhood in Wellington, a lot of people had succulents. So I kind of did some little strolls borrowing some people's succulent plants and then splitting up each individual leaf. I completely dug out our vegetable garden, removed every fruit and veg that was attempting to grow in there, and I lined up perfect rows of all of these succulents, which then grew into individual plants. I had it pretty well sorted. If I look back, I had all these neat little rows, and then 2 months before our local town fair, I would transplant them all into these pretty pots that I'd buy at the warehouse, give them time to get used to the pot. Then I would hit Facebook with some cool photos talking about me trying to fundraise for a gym comp in Tauranga, and then started selling them. But other than that, plants, not really my thing. But I will say that my family, especially, I feel like Wellington's extra lucky. We have lots of native bush, and so my family loves to go on walks in our native flora. So walking in native bush, spend a lot of time appreciating the native birds and talking to people. And I found out that our native biodiversity is actually something that could use a bit of a helping hand. So I looked into that after doing my succulents. I was like, what can I grow next? And also in my neighborhood was native plant seeds. So borrowed some of those. And then I had hundreds of them in my backyard.
Oh, crazy. It's so crazy how, things happen for a reason and you pick up stuff and off you go and you have no idea where it's going to end up, which is quite beautiful. And, if we talk about your business idea, so you had all these plastic containers, and from the plastic container, all this waste here to business, what is the process there? Because it doesn't just jump straight away. Did you, how did that work? I guess, what is the story behind that there?
So I was actually completing one of the Girl Boss courses, which I'm not sure if you've heard of. So Alexia, I believe, is the founder. Really cool lady who made this online platform called Girl Boss. And I was participating in one of their courses. So it was a 10-day, I believe, primary industry course. And after getting lots of mentorship through the program, learning more about the industry, we had to then create, I don't think it was a business idea, but it was an idea to solve an issue in a sector in the primary industries. And I was talking to my uncle, and we were looking at the forestry sector. And another thing about my family is that we love road trips. And as anyone would know, if you go on a road trip in New Zealand, is you'll find lots of forestry waste, also known as forestry slash. And I'd also been trying to grow these native plants, and we were like, I've got lots of plastic pots everywhere, and there's also lots of forestry waste everywhere. Can we make biodegradable plant pots from forestry waste? So that was back in probably January of 2022, that I came up with this idea. Originally, it was called EnviroPlanter, and then did that through the Girl Boss program. Nothing really came of it, and then I did another Girl Boss program, and I dug further into the idea and became a finalist with it. So I was like, oh, this is validation. Someone thinks this is a good idea. And I was talking to more people about it, and I was getting more interest. So I was like, you know what? I think this is an idea that's going to work. And if it works, it's going to help lots of people. So I'm going to do that at some point. And then that's when the Young Enterprise scheme was introduced to me. So Young Enterprise, for those who don't know, is a nationwide business competition for high school students to create real life businesses. And so I had the Wellington representative come into my school, Lamborghini, who is incredible, and was talking about this. And I was like, well, this is perfect. I've got this idea. I want to make some biodegradable plant pots. And now I've got the opportunity to get mentorship through this Young Enterprise program. So I put the two together and developed Enevo pots, which is what I've been working on now for the past 16 months or so.
Crazy. And it's so crazy how it all works out. You had an idea through road trips and through just the fact that you're trying to make money initially for your succulents to go to gymnastics, now to the idea. Tell us about the name. What is the motivation behind the name? So you had a name and then changed the name. Is there any resonance with the name?
Yeah, so originally it was EnviroPlanter, which was simply too long. We were trying to fit it in a logo. It didn't look good. And so then I'm actually working on a school project developing branding and logo, and I found my old documents. I had brainstormed maybe 12 different names, and I basically took the word environment or environmental, biodegradable, eco-friendly. I took those words and kind of was looking where I could find little pieces and put them together to make something which sounded nice. And then I had about 10 or 12 names, which all kind of sounded nice. And then I went to Google to see if they existed. And then Enevo Pots was the one which hadn't been taken already and still sounded quite cool. And so for me, it was the winner because Enevo Pots still kind of, well, Enevo still gave me the environmental kind of like attachment, like I could still make the connection, but it was also quite elegant, quite nice and fresh, and looked really good on our logo. So that was the one we picked.
Yeah, and I like that because it's you just explained the process. People think that a logo just happens overnight, but it doesn't. It's you got to brainstorm, you got to think about it, but you've also got to check to make sure there's no one else there that's got the name. Otherwise, in a few years' time, someone's gonna be like, "Hey, we're gonna sue you because you have our name." Like, whoa, what's going on? Yeah, so yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. I've been looking back at all my developments of the logo, and there's probably there was about 20 initial sketches which slowly developed into the shape, and then maybe about 30 or 40 minor changes, getting the color palette right, getting the fonts right, little things into perfecting the logo.
amazing. What a great little story there. So let's talk about Inavo Pots. What is the process behind it? So you've got there's some amazing information out there, but I'd love to know your own story about it, because it's not an easy story, right? You would have had to think about it. You'd have to go, okay, cool, this is the idea. How do I actually make things work? What did you had the idea to take the forestry waste and make it into this lovely biodegradable pot here, but was it as easy as that, or did you have to think about a different way of doing it?
Yeah, so as we know it now, Enevo Pots is going to be slash is a range of biodegradable plant pots that will have a 6-month shelf life, biodegrade in less than 1 year, and they're going to be made of 100% New Zealand underutilized primary industry residue. Now, 16 months ago, that's not what they were. They were, I said I was going to make biodegradable plant pots from forestry slash.
Yes.
Now, I was 17 years old. No experience building a business, nor did I have any experience in the forestry or primary industry sector. So I had my first meeting with two people working at Te Ururako, which is the forestry department of the Ministry of Primary Industries. And they told me that to use forestry slash, I'd need about $5 million worth of machinery simply to process the slash. And so what I've been learning is that you can't just take the logs off the beach. It's about $10,000 an hour to get a helicopter to move it, A. B, the slash is in such a coarse material that it's very hard to process. And finally, I don't want to bring in a new disease to the plants, and I don't know where those logs have been. So we are not touching the slash for now, but we're still using forestry residue, so forestry waste products, which in the future will hopefully look at stopping the tree from becoming slash in the first place. So you can't take the dead log off the side of the bank, but hopefully we can convince people to take the log with them and not leave it there because we'll use it. But so the developing of this business has been completely foreign industry. And so the way that I navigated this was by reaching out to my connections. So through the people at Te Ururako, they connected me to Scion. So they're a Crown Research Institute, specializes in forestry, and they're doing such cool things up in Rotorua. I visited them there and basically saw all their cool lab spaces, saw all the innovation they're doing. They're actually doing a lot in the sustainability side, creating biopolymers, so plastics made out of like wood-derived products. And they showed me this machine which could help me with my product. So went back home, and then we applied for a grant, got a pretty significant amount of money from AgMart, which we're all very surprised that I got. And then Scion matched that. So
oh wow.
So they matched that with their in-kind support. So I could use all their resources and they would pay for that with a grant on their side. And then the AgMart grant would pay for my travel, my hours, and anything I needed on my side. And with Scion is how I've ended up doing 2 rounds of prototyping through them. And we now have about 90 of our biodegradable plant pots being tested in nurseries, both North and South Island. We're getting some progress pictures and things are looking good. But yeah, it's been getting involved with the industry, and Scion's been a crucial partner in this process.
That's so cool. And I guess the question I have for you is, this all sounds really amazing, but I'm just putting into context, you are 16 and 17 when you're navigating this. And what is that like for you? Because you're obviously navigating an arena where there are, there's commercial contracts, there's legals, there's all these crazy things which are, as a 16-year-old, you would be like, what are you talking about? Or, oh, I didn't know this existed. What is that like for you as you started navigating that with you and I guess your family as well as you were doing this? Because I'm sure this is not a solo effort.
Yeah, so last year I was kind of free reigning it by myself, which worked to a degree. But then when I had the grant, and navigating that is when my parents really helped me, because they don't teach you in high school how to write a 30-page grant agreement. And I'm sure as Tane would know, because I believe you said you're working in grants and sports. Yeah, it's not easy. And so my parents are really supporting me with that. School doesn't teach you either how to understand a 20-page non-disclosure agreement. And I didn't really feel like getting myself into a situation where I accidentally said something and I now had this semi-Crown Research Institute suddenly telling me said something I wasn't meant to. And so navigating, I had maybe 2 or 3 now, large non-disclosure agreements. I've got a collaboration agreement with Scion. I've got all these grant agreements telling them what I will and won't spend the money on. And so reaching out to people was really crucial. So I reached out to a neighborhood lawyer, had a Zoom call with him, And then my friend's dad was a commercial lawyer, talked with them, pulled the highlighters out, trying to understand this document before getting my parents to sign on my behalf because I'm under 18.
Yeah, how crazy awesome is that there? But also, you've said a few things there which are really crucial. I guess you've leaned on people that you know, and what has that been like for you? Because you kind of I'm just going to assume here, all this
Mm.
costs money, but going to see a lawyer costs a lot of money. But have you been surprised slash amazed by the amount of help you've gotten just from people just saying, "Hey, this is awesome. Let's give it a crack."
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I've said in pretty much every like article or
Yeah,
media, is that the only reason this has been possible is because people have been so gracious of their time, and their support. And I guess that's my encouragement to any teachers and stuff out there, because like if I think very back to the beginning with my growing of native plants, I was talking to my teacher about it, and then he was interested and helped me design my greenhouse using the platform in class. And so the support through people around me has been huge. Yeah, patent attorneys, lawyers, all these scientists. So before the grants or anything, they were willing to sit with me on Zoom calls. I feel like I had maybe 8 Zoom calls with Scion before I actually was like, I don't know if I call it their client, but like was working with them. And so they didn't have to do that, but encouraging or showing support and interest in a young person's project is crucial, because otherwise they might not be what they could be. And so, yeah, like business mentors, or anyone I've found on LinkedIn, flick them a message asking them if I can catch up over coffee. And people have always said yes, because, when you see a young person excited about something, there's few people who would make the mistake of declining them, which I'm very appreciative for. Yeah.
yeah. I like that because a lot of people on our podcast have said the same thing. They've leaned into people and they've had a great support structure and haven't been afraid to ask. I think it's when you're
Mm.
afraid to ask. The worst that someone can say is no, right? That's the worst possible thing. But the worst possible thing is you're not even asking. Um,
Yeah.
our last podcast we had Jamie Beaton, who runs Crimson Education, and he said the
Oh,
same thing.
wow.
He said when he first started off, it was really quite challenging, to try and navigate that. But he had the support of a teacher, the support of one person. That's all you need, just one person to support you and say, hey, this can happen. The same thing for you. You had the support of your teacher at school, say, hey, greenhouse, let's build it, And I think those small things are actually big things. They're small, but they're
Mm.
actually without that small thing, nothing happens, right? It's a bit. I was watching a show the other day, Planet Earth, with David Attenborough, and he spoke about you know, we have all these crazy grasslands around the world, but he goes, all of this would be all destroyed if we didn't think about the ants. The ants are these tiniest things, but because of them, they keep the
Mm.
world really going. So you think about the most smallest thing in your whole journey is actually the most vital thing, because without that small thing, things don't happen. So it's really, really beautiful that people have done that for you. Yeah. And let's talk about what it's been like for you now. I guess being an unknown person, say 16 months ago, you living your best life. And now all of a sudden you start being in the limelight for different reasons, like going to different conferences and getting to media pieces. So we have your business idea, which is great, but here's this other world that starts happening around you as well, which is something that nothing prepares you for. What is that has been like for you?
It's definitely been insane. A lot of the kind of everything started last year at the end of the year at nationals. Um, so someone had tagged me in a LinkedIn post, um, and then the person running this first conference which I spoke at saw that, reached out to them, got connected to Young Enterprise, and then found me. And I remember getting that email asking if I wanted to speak at this conference, and it was insane. Because I've now spoken at 2 conferences, which are both like adult industry conferences. So I'm the only student there. I think at my first conference when I arrived, someone asked me if I was a volunteer. um, but yeah, no, I think it's definitely not sunk in. Like, how can I process that I'm like getting these awards and this recognition? Um, like I won the Youth Wellingtonian of the Year, which still my brain can't process that, because like how could I? Um, so it's definitely like, I always say that I'm not necessarily proud, but I'm really humbled that people find what I do to be inspiring and impactful. And that's what I want to do with my life, is for it to inspire other people to do the same, rather than just be like, wow, that's cool, good for her. You know, like I want people to actually feel like they can go and make that impact too. I feel like, obviously, because on this podcast we talk about the ups and the downs, it has come with a bit of pressure now that like people say all these good things about me on like these media things, and I'm like, really? Because you know, like at school, like I'm just a regular schoolgirl. um I nap a lot, I'm tired. And I think it's good for me to have like the balances in the two lives, but definitely my like media known version of myself is not something that I have like processed yet, and I'm still very much me without all that, which I think is really important so that I, you know, stay grounded. But it's definitely insane, and I'm very grateful for everything which has been coming of it, which has been helping my business, because yeah, it's a product that I believe will work, and if it does work, it's going to help a lot of people and help the planet. So that's my goal at the moment.
I love that, Dan. I love that because you touched on a point that I want to go down. This is hard. Life is hard as it is, and life is great, and this is amazing. And you are navigating also year 13 at the same time that you're doing this year. And year 13 is, if correctly and incorrectly, it's the year when you do some pretty cool things, and WC does some really crazy, awesome, cool things. What is it like for you? Because you're trying to still be a year 13 young person. You're still at school. School doesn't stop for you. NCA doesn't stop for you. How is that for you? And also with your peers, because it must be really interesting for you because you have all these scientists and these lawyers in one conversation, and then you go to school and you have your peers who are talking about stuff that young people talk about, which is two very, very different worlds.
Yeah. It's definitely been interesting, especially because I have a lot of people asking me why I'm still at school. Because obviously a lot of entrepreneurs take
Yep.
they finish it up. And like I understand my business could be a full-time job, which is why it's been quite hard with like depression and burnout, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later. But living in the two different worlds, um, let's first like on a on a workload lens has been a lot. So what I've done is my teachers have been really helpful. I've tried to incorporate my business into school as much as possible. So I take this subject called Applied Material Product Science, which my school no longer offers. But since I had this project, which I was like, hey, I could do this for the whole project, they've let me do it. So I'm getting supervised. I'm in a classroom where I can ask some design teachers questions, and I'm working on my business pretty much through the entire year and getting school credits, because so my school doesn't do the young enterprise scheme within the curriculum, so I've been doing everything out of school, which is fine to a degree, but now when I'm having to spend hours a day on it, I couldn't do that outside of school, purely outside of school. So I've been able to get school credits for it. I also have a digital design technology subject where I have been doing my logo development, doing more research into marketing strategies. And so incorporating my business as much as I can into schoolwork has been crucial. And then socially, I think it's been pretty fun. The people at school don't really like, they congratulate me when they see something, but I don't really like to talk about it at school. I try and like be my me without business as much as I can. Although there are some times where I'm missing out on social events, for example, because I'm networking with old people, which my friends can't quite understand, but like that's fine. And a big thing for me is like I don't listen to criticism from people that I don't aspire to be like. So there's a lot of people obviously who, I guess, just with being a teenager, don't really have an interest in what I'm doing, because like they'll be like, oh, you're wasting your childhood. But for me, I'm investing into my future, and I'm doing something that's interesting to me. And the things that I'm missing out on, I don't really care about. I still have my social time with my friends and get to meet people, but I can also be investing into my future and trying to make an impact in my community. And so it's been okay.
Yeah, and I love the way you said it, because there was three different facets that you spoke about, and all of them are equally as valuable as each other, which is just it's life, right? It is life, and it's a journey that you've taken. There's nothing wrong with it, which is really, really beautiful. But you did mention, and Tanya mentioned this at the start as well. Burnout is real. Burnout is real. You mentioned that you have all these long hours, and just trying to navigate. Also looking after yourself as a person. Just there's all this happening, but you've also got to look after yourself in this family time. How has it been for you? Tanya spoke about burnout. Burnout has hit Tanya really quite hard because I'm saying yes to everything, which is good, but sometimes bad. Have you experienced that, or is that still something that you are still going, all right, cool, I'm going to look after myself? Yeah, what's it been like for you?
Yeah, so your intro, Tane, was very relatable to me. And I can kind of like compare it quite directly in my last year and then this year. So this year's been good, last year not so good. As I mentioned, I didn't really have a mentor. I was also working at a restaurant, which was very high paced, quite stressful. I had my NCA level 2, which is people say is the most important one. And then I'm working on this business. And so I think around term 2, I like burnt out. So I was sleeping through most of my classes really. Didn't really have, or like I feel like I had energy to do good in my business, but everything else was like flopping at the sacrifice of it. In the end, my parents and therapists got involved and pretty much removed everything from my life. It was quite in my eyes, quite an aggressive slash and burn of activities to get myself back on track, which is tough, but definitely important for me to learn and navigate and learn how to prioritize. Because I am very much an ambitious, say yes to everything person. Every opportunity that comes my way is like a yes. So I think on Sunday, I was applying for this trip to Brazil for a business program, and then I had found Nate had posted on LinkedIn some trip to Peru, and I'm like,
Peru, yeah.
I was like, guys, we're applying for Peru, and then he sent me this other thing, like a trip to Fiji, doing all this business around the world, and my parents were like, no, and I was like, but, and they're like, Elisa, this is in November during your exams. No, you can't skip that exam just because you'll be able to technically use your mock grades. You will complete this year. And so having like going by my parents' word has been very important. I will give them my pros and cons list. I'm quite persuasive, I think. But if there's a no, it's a no because I know that they've been looking out for me. So that's a way that I've navigated it this year. So last year I had my burnout stage, kind of did nothing, which made my grades flop, which made my like ability to socially sustain myself kind of flop as well. But then this year, I've honestly had the best like 6 months ever. And I think a crucial part of that has been developing my circle. So I've got a quite good team of mentors around me now. My parents are there for, I think I put this out in an article, which is maybe out or maybe not out, but my parents are there for the legal stuff, but also for the for looking after my well-being. I've got the young enterprise business mentor who is also managing 600 other kids, but is helping me with young enterprise related things. I have a big picture business mentor who is one of the co-founders of Sharesies. Yep. And then I also have a personal mentor. So she has been like the best thing to come in the past 3 months for me.
What's her name? Give her a shout out. Yeah, give her a shout out. Yeah.
I actually talked to her. I gave her a shout out in my last article. Cassie. Cassie, I love her with my whole soul. But yeah, so she's like a young adult at my church who has been helping me so much develop me outside of not entrepreneurial Lisa, not leadership Elisa, but just becoming the best version of myself so I can keep like loving people and looking after myself. And a part of looking after myself was building my identity outside of business, which is something that I'm very passionate about. because I struggled with that when I was in competitive gymnastics, which is my brain going off track quickly. I was in competitive gymnastics. I was very injured, but I didn't want to quit because I was like, all I am is a rhythmic gymnast, and that's all I do, and I can't do anything other than that. But then I got injured badly, and had to quit, and kind of went through a whole like, oh, what do I do? And then business came along, and and then I got too sucked into business, and then became burnt out. So what I've learned and become passionate about is building an identity of yourself with the things like removed. And so what I tell myself is, if it was taken away, would I be okay? So if business suddenly flopped, I can't flop with it because I was business. And so I build myself outside of business, which is like I love to dance. I did 100 days of cold showers or swims in the very cold Wellington harbour.
Yeah.
I'll be going again tomorrow morning, because like that's just things that bring me joy and excitement, and it's things outside of business, which has been very important. So obviously, if my business flops, I'd be pretty upset. But I've been working on making sure if my business flops, I don't flop with it, because I'm a whole person aside from all these other things. And I think that's something that students, teenagers, or even adults like struggle with a lot. And then suddenly they think like COVID, for example, and then you can't do this sport that you were, or like even in the Olympics, people getting injured during the warm-ups, and then suddenly, like, so that's something that I've been really passionate about and has led me to have a really good year so far.
That's so cool, because you know what, it's so cool because I'm glad you mentioned that there, because in the last podcast with Zena, we were talking about this year, and what we spoke about was we all do this year. We all do this. We marry ourselves to our idea or our job or our title or whatever, because that's the way we do it, right? And you've got to have the self-awareness to actually break away and say, actually, the job is not me, the business is not me, the rugby is not me. If I take that away, will I be okay? And for some people, they're not okay because they don't have anything else to do, right? And it's pretty awesome to hear that you use the word joy with cold showers, but hey, you do you. That's so cool. But I think that's important. And Tana, I guess you can also ask the question about burnout, because you've just experienced that as well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a topical. Yeah, I think you raised some really good points around, identifying what it is for you. And I think for me, I think it probably comes more from an aspect of, I don't know if it's trying to prove myself or just trying to prove my worth within the role, like it's my first graduate role. And so I'm really trying to, show that they hired me for a reason. But I think also like, yeah, I don't marry myself. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, you might be opening up something. No, but it's yeah. I think it's interesting because like I think it's just because I am very passionate about what I want to do, and so you just say yes to everything, and you don't realize what's actually happening in the background. So I think it's good that you have something. And I think the other difference, between the two of us is like you've got a lot of mentors there, and yes, I have mentors, but also, when you become an adult, you don't have anybody to be accountable to, and so you really need to have that self accountability, which is quite tough to develop, and I guess will obviously take time.
Yeah, I think because for me, in my mind, everything always like I always calculate it so that I can achieve everything. Like I've got this notebook that I've now put away because every day I'd plan out what I would do in every hour pretty much.
Yeah.
And I'm like saying yes to all these things, and my parents are like, how are you gonna fit that? I'm like, look, it's like I've even got a 30-minute break there. And so definitely like last year was when I went through like a quite long period of burnout, but I definitely still experience it like this year. So it's not in a like a 2/3 month chunk where I'm paralyzed and can't do anything and have to really strip away. But even yesterday, I thought I rested over the weekend, and then yesterday I had my calendar, I had a list of things to do after school, and I went home and just somehow was on my computer for 3 hours scrolling on my phone and achieved nothing, and then felt really bad about it, and then thought I slept well, and then today fell asleep in my math class, and then almost fell asleep on the bus on the way home, and then obviously I had a list of things I was going to do between after school and this call before my meeting at 8:30, And I didn't achieve anything after school today, but I think it's learning to like have grace with myself, because like not just because I'm young, but like the fact that I'm waking up every day trying to make a difference like is enough. I don't need to be achieving everything. And so my parents have been helping me be like, Lisa, does this need to happen today, or can you let it go to the next week? And so it's only been finding a balance, because I love saying yes to everything. Whether it's a trip to go ride a digger at school. Um, yeah, like last year I missed a lot of school days attending random networking events, and my parents like, "What did you learn?" I'm like, "I got this free gift for coming," and so it's a trial and error period, but I'm very grateful that I've got that support system around me, so that I can hopefully learn, so that when I no longer have that support system as accessible, I can kind of make some more wise decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's a learning process. I think Tanya knows that I'd say I do a lot of things, and I say yes to a lot of things as well. And I've just realized over the years that if you try to do everything, you end up doing nothing. And I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
remind myself about that day. So what I mean by that is you will do everything, but it won't be 100%. So you might as well not
Yeah.
do it anyway. So so just pick your battles, pick your things, and go, right, cool. Today I'm gonna do this here. But it's hard. It's really hard, especially when you're passionate about things, especially when you're passionate about change. And I think all three of us are passionate about change in our different ways of work. And yeah, Tanya will know that I'm pretty guilty. Lots of people say to me, where do you find time? Do you never sleep? And I was like, hey guys, I do sleep. And they're like, yeah, how? You do all these other crazy things here. And I was like, but I don't see it like that there. But it only takes awareness from other people. And you would have heard this quote. I guess there were two fishes swimming, and one fish says to the other fish, "Hey, the water is pretty amazing today." And the fish goes, "Yeah, yeah." And then swims and goes, "What is water?" Because there's no self-awareness of what water is, because they're just
Mm.
so busy moving that they're forgetting where they are in. So yeah, and I think all three of us are guilty of that at some point in time. I'm speaking for us, but I think given what we're getting here, I think we're all and that's okay. But
Mm.
self-awareness is really important for us as we do that there, which is quite hard sometimes.
I'm just going to intersect and ask a question. So I think something we've kind of discussed quite a lot is your support networks, and I think that's
Mhm.
amazing and definitely something, yeah, that should be encouraged. But I guess my question is, do you ever find that having all of this support makes it hard for you to make decisions in terms of where it is you're going or what you're setting out to achieve? I think particularly, yeah, from my transition from high school to where I am now, I've seen a lot more support towards young people, and I think it definitely has a lot of positives, in terms of having
Mm.
people to talk to and help you navigate those decisions. But I'm also mindful that, if you have everybody supporting you and advocating for you and saying, yep, you should take these amazing opportunities, does it make it then harder for you to make decisions around where it is you want to go?
Yeah, so that is also something that I spent a lot of time looking into thinking about, because with my circle, I was very selective on who can speak into my life. And so I spent a lot of time working out who I actually was going to take advice from, because everyone's trying to give advice. And if I listened to some of the advice I got early on in my business would have shut down a year and a half ago, and nothing would have happened. And I probably would be procrastinating doing homework, and I wouldn't have experienced anything. So for me, the Young Enterprise coordinator for the Wellington region, Lime Bruni, was the most incredible person, who was pretty much my only mentor last year. Um, and she had a lot of people approach her asking to mentor me, but she was really selective and told a lot of people no. And until she found the right person, she thought, for me. Um, so that was like a careful selection. Um, but also I know with my business that I know the direction I want it to go, because that aligns with what my personal values are. And so at the end of the day, I'm always seeing whether other people's advice aligns with the values of my business and myself. Um, so I feel like when I appreciate other people's wisdom, but I also it links in with mine. Like I think I'm quite like a considerate person. So if someone tells me what their thoughts are, I'll genuinely think about their perspective and see where they're coming from. Um, because yeah, like it is my project, and if it doesn't succeed and become $1 billion idea, that's not on, like, that isn't a problem, because this is about the learning and what I can go through. And I also don't want to be protected from making too many mistakes, because it's a privilege for me to be able to make these types of mistakes at my age in the business world. A 30-year-old person who's trying to save up for a house or support other people in a family can't go and make these, like, as risky like projects and stuff. So yeah, but like, as I said, I've got different people for different aspects. My parents, they know best about my well-being. I will convince them the pros and cons if I think they're wrong, and we'll always come to a conclusion. So like a lot of times I do get my way because I have thought about it and I have calculated it, but um I know that they've got experience and they're looking out for me. My personal mentor is someone who's extremely wise, and always speaks with like love and correction. And so what she's doing for me is out of love. Um, and I also trust the wisdom she carries. And then business, the co-founder of Sharesies is the co-founder of Sharesies. So I appreciate anything he tells me, because he's been there and he's done that, and I have not. So yeah, I'm careful with who I surround myself with, but yeah, I've been selective.
What's beautiful about that there is because, people, this is the famous saying out there that you are the product of the five people you hang around with. So it's important for you to be selective with who you hang with, because it is true. It is true. When I was doing my research a long time ago, it came across all data that the people you hang around with determine your health, your well-being, your success. So, it's great that you have those people around you, but also your friends who take you on a whole different journey, which is very, very different. And I guess, this is a futuristic question, I guess. What is the goal? What is the goal for you? So this year, okay, cool. You're on the grind. You've got your 90 pots all around the country. You've got NCA. You've got all these other things happening here. If we had the best case scenario in a year's time, if we were going to have a chat in a year's time, what would you like to be saying on this podcast if you could future focus?
So I've got two plans for next year. They both sound pretty good. Neither of them might happen, but if I'm talking about the perfect plan, which I have, in a year, I'd tell you that we've produced 10,000 of our biodegradable plant pots as our pilot trial. That in a year's time, they would either be going into like starting a 6-month trial period in commercial nurseries around the country, or be finishing up. I would have done my outward bound next year.
Yay.
I would have gone to France and spent some time doing some OE, and speaking at this conference, maybe. There's a conference in New Zealand that I'd like to speak at or be a part of. But yeah, I guess I don't really like just talking about like all these milestones, but that's normally what I communicate because it's easier for people to grasp. But in a year's time, I would have wanted to say that I spent a lot of time developing myself, putting myself in uncomfortable positions for growth, like outward bound. I would have hoped that I would have gone around to see the world a bit, because I explain this a lot. As an entrepreneur, I want to see problems and fix them. And for me to see a problem, I need exposure, and I want to step into other people's shoes and see how innovation can help them out. And I would have looked after myself the whole way, not overworked myself, prioritized building me as a person, and being involved with my community, being like the person who I feel like I'm always there for my friends, and I'd like to keep that, not lose that, no matter how big or small my business becomes. And yeah, just like keep having the drive to build a better world is what I'd hope I'm at in a year's time.
Yeah, I'm sure you get there. You might not get everything, but I'm sure you'll get most of the things. That's okay. And that's okay, right? If you tick off the major things, which is looking after yourself, getting the business to where you want to be, that's a great thing. Super random question. As a gymnast, is that the favorite sport at the Olympics, or is another sport that you are really engrossed in watching?
So I did rhythmic gymnastics, which I think is the coolest thing ever. And I think honestly, it will be my favorite sport to watch probably. And I think that non-gymnasts will see that. If you watch the rhythmic gymnastics, you'll be in awe of it because it's just such a beautiful sport. Um, I still, when I watch it, I kind of go, I know how hard like this person must have trained to get there. Like rhythmic people training like 40 hours a week probably or more to compete a 1 minute routine or 1.5 minute routine. But yeah, I think rhythmic gymnastics is going to be my highlight. We quite like watching the synchronized swimming as well, quite fun. But yeah, my family loves to get involved with a really small niche sport and suddenly become like a professional commentator and judge, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. But yeah, having a good time watching it.
I think that's everyone in this room here. Tanya, what about you? Is there any niche sport that you've started enjoying at the moment at the Olympics?
Oh, I wouldn't say there was any particular sport, but I think it's just been interesting to, yeah, be a part of. So at work, we pulled a country out of the hat, just to try and support. So it's been quite good in that sense to,
Oh
yeah, watch
wow.
different sports that you probably wouldn't necessarily support. And yeah, it's been cool to see different
What
countries.
country
Like
have you got? What country have you got, Tanya?
I've got Hungary, so
Oh,
we've done all right in handball and a few other events. I think we've got one or two medals at this stage, but yeah, I think it's just cool to, yes, support a different country as well. You know, like I think we always talk about how there's so many countries and stuff like that, but then we almost fall in the trap of just supporting New Zealand and only watching the New
Yeah.
Zealand events. So it's been quite cool in that sense to do that. And then just seeing some of the podcasts I follow in terms of there's the 3am project to support Australia, and every day they put up notices about Australian athletes and what they're doing. And I think particularly, you know, as we've talked about my passion in the female and girl space, being the first Olympics that's 50-50 in terms of male versus female athletes. So that's
Yeah.
very, I guess, interesting, very topical. Still a lot, I think, to be achieved. Like it's definitely a cool milestone, but definitely a lot, I think, behind the scenes that will, as with anything, I think we'll unravel more questions and answers. But all in all, it's been, yeah, quite an interesting Olympic period.
tell you the most random sport I've been watching is speed wall scaling, whatever the speed walling stuff. I was like, what the hell is this actually a sport? I was like, what is
The
this?
rock
It's so crazy.
climbing?
The rock
Yeah.
climbing, yeah. I was like, crazy, right? Isn't that crazy?
I watched that today. It's so cool.
I was like, what is this? What is this? So crazy. Yeah, it was the most, like you said, the most random sports. I was like, wow, I got so engrossed in it. It's so, over so quickly. But yeah, and I think that's the beauty. That's the
Mm,
beauty with life, right? There's so many things out there. And like you said, Tane, you know, sometimes we get so fixated on Kiwi sports only that we forget about, hey, there's all these other amazing nations out there doing some pretty cool things in some random sports that we've never heard of before, which is really cool. Also, I know you've got to go soon, and I don't want to keep you because you got to prepare for your next meeting. But before you go, you can't just run away just like that. There, you've shared some really beautiful insights, you know, and we can't wait to see what happens with you as you go forward. And I guess you've got two great supporters here in you today as well. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be out there supporting you and cheering you on. But our question for you: our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge, and
mhm.
every week we invite our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our basket. What would you like to share? What piece of knowledge would you like to share? This could come from the world of business, the world of young person, the world of any of whatever from your mentors. Is there any piece of knowledge you'd like to share?
I feel like a genuine passion, either for people or the planet or building a better future for yourself, is already like a winning mindset. So people like, yeah, find something that, I mean, anything that you're passionate at, like go for it because we only have one chance at this world. Um, and like give it a shot. Maybe I would say it was my one knowledge is like it's a privilege to be able to do things young. So try now. Don't be afraid of making the mistakes because you can make them now and then learn from them in the future. Um, yeah, but yeah, like you're never too young. Even if you're old, start now because you'll be older tomorrow, you know. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I think what I've taken away is you'll be older tomorrow. So make those mistakes now because you can learn from them tomorrow, which is very beautiful. Beautiful. Tanya, any last words before we say goodbye to fantastic guest?
It's been a I think a very timely conversation. I've related a lot to, yeah, what I've been going through personally, and yeah, like I think there's been a lot that people can delve into. But still, I think we've done it in a lighthearted way, which is quite cool. You know, quite cool. I think, you know, some of these topics can be quite big sometimes. You know, burnout, trying to be successful all the time. But I think we've done it in a way that, yeah, still makes it a bit more lighthearted and relatable to, anyone, and well, hopefully that's what our listeners get out of it anyway.
Yeah, probably. Fingers crossed. Thank you so much for jumping onto our podcast. I've really enjoyed this. Yeah, like Tana said, it's been really lighthearted. It's been really good. Your energy is. I'd love to meet you in real life because your energy across the Zoom is so positively contagious, if I can say that. It's really, really beautiful. So, I'm guessing wherever you go, you have energy, which is really beautiful. And I'm sure people that you meet and have an impact is really, really wonderful. And like I said just before, you've got two people that are cheering on from the behind the scenes because you'd love to see how you go and make an impact in the world. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for just being so open. And thank you so much for this crazy cool idea that is going to make an impact. Whatever happens, there's going to be impact. So thank you so much. Any last words from you before we say goodbye?
Thank you to both of you. It's firstly such an honor for me to be able to come on here, but also it means so much to the other young people that you've previously interviewed and that are to come. It honestly is life-changing probably to have support from an adult as a young person, because as I'm sure people have previously said, if they were laughed at that time instead of encouraged, they would have maybe just given up and not looked into it. And, young people are the way that we're going to create a better world. And so we've got to support their crazy ideas. Because, that's how we're going to get the world changed. So thank you so much for both of you, what you guys are doing. And, these opportunities are just incredible.
No, beautiful. Thank you so much. For our listeners out there, thank you for jumping on. For our new listeners, hopefully you've enjoyed this. For regular listeners, hopefully you've jumped on and heard something really beautiful. If you haven't done anything today, go back and listen again because there's some amazing pieces of wisdom in today's conversation, and also lots of things that are just real that we can all relate to, no matter how old or how young we are. Till next time, ka kite, bye. Keep safe, but the most important thing is don't forget to put something into your basket of knowledge, and also don't forget to smile. Bye, everybody. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.